Yeah.
there is this essential nature. And when you are more of who you really are, you flow. More can happen with less effort. And so that is a next level of growth where you stop being the work of getting results and you start allowing some things to happen and flow in your life.
All right, Kelly, I am so thrilled to have you here. I don't know. I know you and I have connected a while ago but I was on a podcast episode one time. I think it was a podcast actually. And I was conversing about how I someday down the road dream of hosting retreats. And she was like, oh my gosh, you should follow this girl named Kelly. She's hosting these epic retreats. Like she's just going on this one. And so that's how I started following you.
Wow.
You
I
and
didn't
I
even
can,
know that.
yeah. You and I started connecting in the DMs just a little bit over time. And then fast forward, I think it's probably been a year or
Yeah.
so that we had those conversations. And that now, like me being able to speak to your mastermind and then having you here and just like watching this evolution of relationship happen over time and like timing, even in that, like the divine timing of it, of, we were connected, but it wasn't the right time and space. And yet now here we are. So I am so excited to have you here and have you share all on this podcast today.
Well, I'm excited to be here too, because, I stalked you and lost you and then found you again. And I was like, oh, good. And I remember reaching out like emphatically to bring you into this mastermind, this conscious leader mastermind, because, I'm really speaking to conscious female leaders and everything you talk about and everything you're expanding into just resonated. And I was like, you guys, we need her. We need to understand more about our bodies and how the sinking to it. And, I talk so much about following your intuition and that guidance, and we have that inner wisdom. And so I just love the way that you put out your work. I also love that you marry the feminine with the masculine, because I am what I call a recovering anxious achiever. Like I love achieving. I love succeeding. And so when people told me I had to trade all the do, just for the being, I was so resistant. And to understand that these two are meant to exist in harmony in our own natural way. And I love that you really hold space for strategy and for flow. Yeah. It just resonates with me so much.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it, we were just chit-chatting before about both of us being generators and like liking, I love to do, I love to do it too. I love to check things off and I like to go after big things. And it's like this balance of both things bringing together. And so, I love it too. And I'm excited. And that's why I actually was telling somebody recently, I'm like, I resonate so much of what you put out with and like what you share. And I think it's because we're in those same kind of wavelengths of like stepping into this place of like, how do we hold space for all parts of us, and how do we hold space for actually achieving these big goals that we want, but yet still doing it in a way that feels in integrity with who we are and what we want to become, and this place of evolving into places that we never thought we would be. So before we dive in, I know this is going to be such a great, juicy episode, but before we do that, do you want to share just a little bit of background on your story and like how you got to here where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone who's just meeting me, I'm Kelly Brock and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a mama to two and one on the way. Should be having a baby girl in a couple months and I'm so excited about it. And, my leadership really began with women in network marketing. I led, at 22, I started my own entrepreneurship business. I started a network marketing company and I rose to leadership and to, top marks really quickly. And I spent about 10 years there leading as a darling and a top of my company. I drove free cars. I went on top trips. I was on a billboard in Times Square twice representing my company. And so I spent, my really formidable 20s being ambitious and loving it. I really, I could. And I remember when I had my daughter, I was like, oh my gosh, I've met my other half. Here she is. And I just went right back to work. And something happened when I had my son. I look at him now and I go, you were the beginning of my awakening. Because when I had him, I experienced postpartum depression for the first time, and it came on me immediately. And it started me in this journey. I had always been a woman who could smile and push through, who loved her ambition, who loved being successful, who kept myself really busy. And I joke that I, now looking back, understand that I was out of alignment and totally unaware of it. I was blind to the fact that like I had been burning this body ship down for a while and I just didn't know. And when my son was born, when the postpartum started kind of leaving me, the depression and anxiety was still there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this isn't just hormone. And I started to really explore like what is happening to my body. And for any, ambitious woman, I don't know about you, Renee, but like life had been sending me signs for a while, like
Yeah.
meaning annoyed husband, frustrated family, out of touch, business structure and finances. And I had smoke in all these areas of my life. And I never stopped long enough to say, oh, wait, this smoke means there's fire. I was so annoyed with these things that were distracting me from the goals that I needed to hit. I was the epitome of that woman saying, when this happens, then I can be happy. So I would always say, when I hit this goal, when I get this promotion, when I get this new recruit set up, when I whatever, then I can have peace and rest and whatever. And I had to start looking at myself when my body stopped me because I was having panic attacks, couldn't breathe. I mean, I was sitting in bed. I thought I had bronchitis or something. It was so physical for me. And long story short, it caused me to start to have self-awareness. I was like, you know what? I wasn't always this way. Where did it come from? And as I started looking inward, I started seeing how out of alignment I was. And I looked around, honestly, at a lot of the other female leaders that I was around, and I was like, they're all doing it too. Like, these are not the role models for me in this moment in time. And so I started seeking out other mentors and guides to say, like, someone has to have gotten this, like, can be happy and healthy at the same time thing. And what ended up happening was I started losing my passion for the company and this future that I said was going to be my stamp for forever.
Yeah.
I had a whole identity death as I was just like, oh my gosh, God, why are you taking my desire for this? I said I always wanted this. But I started sharing the things that I was learning, how I was dealing with anxiety, how I was shifting my priorities, how I was living my business different, the choices I was making in my marriage, just all this. And I started talking about it online with women, like just sharing. And there were women coming out of the woodworks, just being like, me too. What was that book you are reading? What was that prompt you wrote in your journal? Like, what was that calendar you got? Like, and I started finding myself coming alive, helping other women with these resources and these tools that I was applying in my own life. And I just thought, this is making me come alive. And so actually right before COVID hit, I walked away from my network marketing business. They towed my pink Cadillac away and I bought a $5 car and went all in to this business and was like, I'll do anything I can to live the most aligned and abundant and authentic life and business. I know I'm supposed to be successful. And then I want that embodiment to help other women. And so for the past 3.5, almost 4 years, I've been growing Kelly Brock Co. And we've done everything from online courses and business, events to running a private island that you heard about. I did it twice, rented the most epic private island to bring, these conscious leaders to just a life-changing experience. And so it's brought me to this moment in time where I'm getting to talk to you, where it's just like, even this makes me so happy. It's like, I want to talk to other women who are about this same conversation in our own ways, because evolving, changing, expanding, it's normal. And to talk about these things helps us go through it side by side with each other. So
yeah.
A little bit of that.
I love it. And I think there's so many parallels to like my story. And like you said, I think there's so many women out there that are having the same experiences and these same parallels of realizing, and like some of the messaging I kind of lean into and resonate with is like these bro style kind of marketers of like, you just have to push harder. If you want your goals, you have to just go deeper and you have to just do more and you have to make all these sacrifices and you have to, that was kind of the messaging I felt like I got out of my network marketing days, were these, if you want this, you have to make the sacrifices and you have to push hard. And I leaned so heavily into that. And I think as the doer and as the achiever, I was willing to do that. Even looking back, I think these stem from even like childhood. So it's probably like a very innate thing too, of, like working hard and going to college. And then when you're done with college, then you work hard and you go to get a job, and you work hard and you get a job. And then it's like, then what? Like, where is life happen in the midst of all of this doing and achieving? And I think that that's what both you and I have settled on, is this sense of like, yes, still hold these successes and hold these goals and ambitions and dreams and desires. And yet at the same time, hold the space for right now and the presence and the awareness of like who you are right in this moment. And I think there is this awakening, a sense of women that are looking for that. Like they want to be this high achieving. And I recently even was writing. So I don't know if I told you, but I've been in the process of writing a book and was writing a chapter. And I was talking about like even some of the very high names, I think, in the online industry and in the online space. And I won't drop names, but I've seen them coming out talking about this fall away, right? This realization of like achieving a standard, achieving a goal, and realizing that in the process, they lost a part of themselves to get there. Yeah. They lost their health, they lost their relationships, they lost whatever it was. And I've seen this like coming back to themselves and rediscovering, which I think is beautiful, but it also just highlights that this is a need. This is a conversation. This is something that's happening for a lot of women.
Well, and are you familiar with the 4 stages of unfolding consciousness? Have you ever heard of that?
No, well, maybe not. Yeah.
Okay. So this was really liberating for me because, there are times, if any woman is listening to this and they're like, oh, shoot, I'm resonating with this, don't shame yourself. Because I always say I have to forgive myself for who I was before I knew.
Yeah.
There are stages of growth that we go through as humans and also as women. And the first real level of consciousness that we have in our life is called victim consciousness, where we think life is happening to us. And, we kind of learn that as kids, where we don't have responsibilities, or we're totally dependent. And we think something else has to change in order for me to get the life that I want. Then the next level is called manifestor consciousness. And it's where all of a sudden, Renee, it was probably you and me, where we all of a sudden were like, hey, wait, I can do something about this. And we turn on almost what feels like that masculine energy, where we go, I have power of choice here. I can use that to change my life. I can change my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors. And we go into manifesting, we go into work, we go into the effort energy, and that works. It's a beautiful space. It's a higher maturity level than being in victim, where we're just like, well, this was the life I was dealt. Yeah. So it's good. The issue is that expires, right? That manifesting kind of drive energy wants to evolve into the next level, which is called channel consciousness, which is where you invite flow into your life. Like this is where you and I live, I bet, a lot, where we help women get in touch with the thing that wants to happen through them. There is a purpose. There is an alignment. There is a unique you. There is, you and I know we love human design, and like there is this essential nature. And when you are more of who you really are, you flow. More can happen with less effort. And so that is a next level of growth, where you stop being the work of getting results and you start allowing some things to happen and flow in your life. And then the fourth one is called being consciousness. And that's where you're showing up as yourself, and what life wants to have happen is happening as you. And my point in sharing that is, like Renee and I were talking before this, we're finding ourselves in seasons of change. Yeah. Again. And I think you and I were really growing from a maturity season of do into I can trust the flow of being. I can trust the allowing of that in. And then that's a part of our growth cycle. So this is an invitation for more women to say, hey, if you've gotten results from the doing, you should, but it will always be expended, right? There's a next level of change.
Yeah. Well, and so I also don't know, we and I haven't like talked, but the word allow is the word that I've like clung to for the last couple of
Ooh.
months. And even recently, I went to a retreat and I told my daughter before I left, I was like, hey, she has all these like beads and stuff. And I was like, will you make me a bracelet that says allow on it so that I can just wear it while I'm like, just to have that reminder. And then even this morning, I saw it in my little like jewelry tray in my bathroom. I was like, I'm not going to put it on today, but I've been wearing it every day for that same feeling of like, how can I consciously step into this place of just allowing things to be and allowing things to be where they are. And we talked about like, gosh, who knows is what's going on in the universe that's making all the tech things go wrong and all of the things go crazy and wild. And I even just yesterday posted on Instagram, I'm like being caught in this season of like, there's just so much chaos. And I don't know if it's the kids going back to school and like all of the adjustments there, which I know you're in adjustments too. And like, we're all in these adjustments, but it's like, how can I step into the place of just, let's just allow this, right? Like, and this morning, my daughter on the way to school, she is like, Mom, I forgot something. And I was like, what? Is like, we're like halfway to school. And she goes, my shoes. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, you needed that thing.
Oh my gosh. So like driving all the way home. And like the last couple of days, I've just been in this space of just like frenzy of there's just so much. Like I've got so many things going and so many puzzle pieces I'm putting together right now. And so I've been like a little bit triggered and a little bit in that like hyper frustrated state. And so when she did that, I was like, okay, just allow this to be like, there's nothing I can change at this point in time. Like we just have to drive home and get the shoes. So we had a whole conversation around like, okay, so tomorrow, remember, like, and it was probably a little bit tenser than normal, but at the same time, knowing I can't change it. And I did breath work this morning, and that's like probably what helped me drop into that state. But just a sense of like so much is outside of our control. And the one thing that is in control is like what we choose to cling to and hold on to and what we let go and release. So I would love to know, like right now in your season, I know you have a lot transitioning and a lot of changes too, is like, what are some of those things that you're really holding on to as like truth or that are helping you navigate through this season of transition or helping you kind of evolve into that next space? Because I know that particularly for a lot of women out there, they're like being called to something bigger and they're being called to change. And a part of that does require letting go and releasing things. Like you even said, like releasing the old life that you had once before to step into this new life. And so that doesn't like, it sounds easy, right? Like when I say like, oh, let's release that old life and step into this new space and just let's release our limiting beliefs. And even this morning in that breath work, she said, there was something that was so profound is like, I keep hearing people say like, release your limiting beliefs, like let them go. But she said, acknowledge them and love them. And I was like, whoa, it's such a different frame of mind because I always look at those limiting beliefs as like, how can I let go of them? Like, how can I move through them and process them? And in this breath work that she did, she said, how can we see those limiting beliefs and love them? And like honor them. And I was like, wow, it's such a different shift. Anyway, so that was like a whole nother thing.
I'm curious about that. How did that shift the way you allow things, feeling that sense of loving them instead?
Yeah. Well, I think it's that place of just acceptance, like accepting that they're going to be here. And it's not a matter of like, cause I have been in the place of like, tell me what I need to let go of. Tell me what I need to shift. Like, tell me what I need to do. Right. Like, what do I need to do to move through and get to that next level? Like, what do I need to do and release and let go of? It's like so much of this like action of even like in the inner work, right? Like in the inner work, there's like this action of like, I'll journal the pages, I'll check off the boxes, I'll do the breath work. And so it was that sense and it'll count, like something will shift, but it's the sense of like that there's nothing that needs to shift and change. Like it's just fully accepting exactly where you are and releasing. And anyway, so I would love to know like what things you're doing.
So, I lead women through their own evolution. And I'm constantly learning the lessons of my own. There's a former version of me, and there's still a part of me that craves arriving. And yet life keeps happening.
Yeah.
Life keeps changing. And so there are some truths that I hold to that help me in seasons of transition. And one of those truths is I do believe we're here for a purpose. I think each of us are here for a purpose. And I think we make a big mistake when we think we have one singular purpose. I believe that our purpose is, we are constantly in our purpose in every next season of evolution.
Yeah.
So in this moment, I'm pregnant. That is my purpose. It is a part of my purpose. It is what I should be doing. It is where I should be giving my energy. It has arrived to me.
Yeah.
And then there will be a season where I have a newborn. And then there's a season where at this moment, I have a 5.5 and 8-year-old. I've got, bigger kids. And so my purpose isn't a destination I arrive to. It's something I'm always in. And when we go seeking for a purpose that is an arrival date, we're constantly in dissatisfaction with this moment.
Yeah.
I had a mentor say to me one time, she said, "You are not Kelly, you are Kellying." You're not a noun, you're a verb. You are an action that is unfolding. And we make this big mistake when we think, I finally found the career. I finally did the launch. I finally found the product. I finally found the coach. I finally found the thing. And it's like, no, you're right. And that is for this moment in time.
Yeah.
And so hold it, love it, accept it, yield it well. And so if I believe all the good things that come into my life are something I'm supposed to allow, well, why wouldn't challenges be a transition that I'm supposed to allow? Now, none of us like that. I mean, believe me, I'm not someone who's not white knuckling my happiness. I'm just like, wait, bring me back to joy. Like truthfully, 2023 has been, I joke. I said this to my friend the other day. I said, my 2023 has been the Miley Cyrus song. I came in like a wrecking ball. Like everything, everywhere I thought I was going, the friends I thought I was going to have, the way that I thought my husband and my purpose in marriage and all these things were going to go, where I thought I was living, I was wrong. And to the point of things have been literally falling down around me. And I'm going, I know nothing. I know nothing. But what I cling to is even though I've never been in this season of transition, I have been through transition seasons before. And this happened to me when I left my network marketing company. I started losing my passion for it. I didn't have a vibration of joy. I started like being like, is this it? Like I started having those feelings, and what was once working stopped working. And I'm finding that again in my life where it's just like, it's just not hitting. It's not making me come alive in that way. And that's a normal thing, things to break down and shift so that there's new space. And so I have found myself in the last couple of months, y'all who are listening, you're listening to me at a much wiser moment. If you had met me 60 days ago, I've been like, I can't talk to anybody. Like, I don't know what's up. And I still don't know what's up. But I remember enough that I believe life is happening for me. Again, I do believe we all have a purpose, and our purpose is to evolve and grow. And so there is a new version of me that's wanting to be birthed that I may not have sight for right now, but it's pulling me. It's coming for me, whether I want it or not, because I believe I came for it. And so the version of me that I have been, this identity that I've clung to, even down to my title, someone the other day was like, so what do you do? And I was just like, what do I do? Like, what is my business title anymore? I don't know, because I feel so in motion, and that I cling to that sense of certainty that comes from being like, I know who I am and where I'm going. And that vision, I mean, honestly, that vision for me is like a star that I hook myself to, and I shoot, and I feel a little ungrounded right now, but I believe enough that things have to shift so I change. I mean, Renee, I'm curious for you, unfortunately, have the challenging things that have happened in your life, have they not been the most life shifting, truth telling parts of your growth?
100%. And I look at all the things that have made me shift and made me change. And It's either something that happened to me. So like when my husband
Mhm.
had his brain tumor, or having kids, or any of those types of things, or it's the places where I've struggled the most,
Mm.
right? When I'm caught in my doing and forcing, and things like don't work out the way I want them to, it's like those are the seasons, those are the moments when it like brings you to your knees essentially, and causes me to release and causes me to like
Yeah.
shift gears, and either like calling you to evolve in a new way, or to release in a new way, or to discover something new about myself, or something of that nature. But it is always in those moments that those changes and those shifts come, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's
Yeah.
been interesting because, sometimes transitions are like exciting and
Mm-hmm.
they're like, here I'm going.
Yeah.
This is so exciting. And sometimes transitions are, I kind of think of it like pregnancy. It's like you're in this womb space and it's just like, this is going to take 10 months to do this. And I don't know where I'm going and what's going to come out on the other side. And I just have to do my best in the dark. I mean, that's how I feel right now being pregnant.
Yeah.
It's like all I can do is control what I can control
Mm-hmm.
and pray. Right. And so there are these moments where in seasons of transition, I believe that even in the dark, there's something you're supposed to be doing. There's something you're supposed to be allowing. There's something you're supposed to be seeing. And so I hold a posture of I'm a co-creator, meaning let me do my part.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I can pray. I can take aligned action to the best of my ability. And then there are things like your husband's brain tumor, like you didn't
Mm-hmm.
manifest that.
Yeah.
Like that came to you, it arrived to you, and it's now who will you be? How will you hold this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And how does it shift you in a new way? And it caused you to reprioritize your entire life.
Yeah.
And so for anyone who's in one of those transitions where something is happening for real to you, like you're like, I did not wish this. I didn't invite this. I didn't bring this. It's still here. So just like Renee is saying, how
Yeah.
can you allow it? And how can you be, first of all, accept it?
Mm-hmm.
We spend so much time resisting what is here that we waste so much energy learning how to grow or be with or expand from it because we're just in so much resistance of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, really, I love that allowing because acceptance is like, I remember when I overhauled my finances a couple years ago. And it was like, the first thing we have to do is get the state of affairs right now. You're going to have to open your bank account, Kelly. Like, we have to get a real picture of where we're at. I had to get into full acceptance. Like, oh my gosh, this is how much we owe. This is how much we've been spending. And it was like so annoying and so sobering.
Mm-hmm.
But that allowed me to then make real personal choice.
Yeah.
And in transition and in change and in evolution, there might always be something that's out of your control, but there is always personal power in it. There's
Mm-hmm.
still a way you can be with it and learn from it, even if it's just more love. How can I
Mm-hmm.
love these things that are with me? I mean, I have seen so much of my saboteurs lately, like
Yeah.
all these parts of me that are still unhealed, that are controlling, like
Yeah.
that are wishing I was not in transition. I'm like, no, I like to know where I'm going and I have to have the vision and I'm the leader of the company and I'm the whatever. And it's been disorienting to not know. But sometimes, you have to not know to start searching somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Like if all the things were working, it would be working. They're not. So there is another solution that's trying to make itself available to you somehow, some way. And yeah, I've really just
Yeah.
clung to this is for me,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm supposed to evolve, that this is either waking me up to something I need to understand about me or it's activating something new in me. I
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that. What
Mm-hmm.
about you? What do you cling to in transition time?
Mm. I mean, I think one of the things that I think I always like, I remember when, it's particularly like going through my husband's brain tumor story, I remember being there. And at the time, I was not in network marketing. I was not doing, I mean, I wasn't doing anything. I can remember sitting there thinking, like, this will become part of my story.
Wow.
Like, this is a part of the story. And just kind of always kind of being in that space of, I don't know where this is taking me, but this is part of the story. Like, this is
Yeah.
part of the journey that I'm going on. And I think also knowing that in each one of those things, it was going to serve me in some way down the road, whether that was a vision. And now I look back and I'm like, that vision, there's no way that I could have even fathomed the vision of where I am today. But the reality of being in that moment, just being like, this is a part of the story, like this will be something someday, I think is part of that. Yeah.
That's huge. That's so huge. And thank you, because that actually is something that I've been holding on to as well. You know, when we are in times of stress or chaos or overwhelm, think of your perspective as like a lens on a camera. It zooms in. It's like, I got to just deal with all that's right here. And we don't have perspective for the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And so to take a moment and zoom out for a minute, and I do this meditation people can get, it's called the visualizations of you. And one of the visualizations is your wise older woman. And I will zoom out to the end of my life. And I'm like, hey, old Kelly, sweet old Kelly, wise Kelly, what happens here? Tell me the story about how I want to have held this and handled it. And it helps me have perspective when I can't in the moment. So when you expand your context, like when you make that context so much bigger, as in, how does this blip on the radar show up in the story of my life? It's like, you know, I've told my husband this. I'm like, here's the end of the story. We get through it. Here's the end of the story. We rise. Like, here's the end of, you know, this, we grow. And so even that, I love that. You're like, this gets used. And so having a hopeful and positive perspective and higher view of the challenges that feel like they will weigh you down, or the uncertainty that just feels scary. Because again, sometimes we're taking big steps of transition and growth, and you're just like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe your higher self, your older, wiser self goes, no, this was the best day of our life.
Yeah.
This changed us.
Yeah. And it's funny, is like, and not funny at the same time, but like in those seasons, sometimes we don't feel like this is the best decision, or this is the best shift, or this is the best change. It comes with that sense of like grieving and loss sometimes, and acknowledging and accepting that. And I think, like we even said, you know, acceptance and like fully accepting and allowing things, it does feel much harder sometimes, like, than we're just saying, right? Like it can be easy to be like, just accept it. But there's a whole process that happens internally in that, in getting us to that place of fully accepting it. And I think that that's the work. Like that's the piece what makes the shift, and what makes the change is in that transition of like this internal shift of like fully allowing it, versus cognitively, which I think is what so many of us try to do. I mean, it's what I do. I'm like cognitively, like, check, this one's gone. Check, I've released this. Check, I've allowed this. I've accepted this. But like truly ingraining that on a physiological level, that's part of why I've started getting into the breath work, is because there's so much change and shift that happens within the body that we're just not even cognitively able to do. That when, for me, what's funny is like, I tend to operate in my logical, like my head space, but that's not my design. And so it's this shift. And so like the more that we bring ourselves back into that and like lean into the body, I feel like makes such a huge difference. So but it's one of those things, like if people are sitting there thinking like, well, I've tried checking all the boxes, I've tried accepting this, I've tried allowing it, I've tried doing it, and it's just not working. It's like, that's part of the process. Like there's this process and this shift that happens. It's not something that we cognitively just do.
Well, and I think that's so important too, because exactly what you said, it's not intellectually acknowledging and accepting. It's like, okay, I'm stuck. I said it, God. You know, it's like, no, I'm mourning the fact that whoever I've just been is dying. And I don't know if I'll ever be her again. And I'm not sure where I'm going, and feeling that and allowing that full scope and experience. I remember the day, you know, so I was in this career for 10 years, and I remember I had been feeling so stuck. And I remember praying in church one day, and it was, I like had my hands up, and I remember being like, God, change my husband, give me back my desire for this business. Like I was trying to change all these other things. And I realized I had been holding my fist with one. And I was like, oh, I'm white knuckling that all my
Yeah.
answers to my prayers have to come through this business, through
Yeah.
this identity, through this person I said I'm going to be that maybe I'm not supposed to be. And it was a morning of me releasing that and being like, okay, God, if it's not what I thought I heard you say, like, make it better than I imagined. I'm giving it
Mhm.
back. And it was not the intellectual acknowledgement. It was the really physically surrendering. I mean, even saying this right now, my body remembers how I felt just being like, I'm done.
Mhm.
I'm done. I'm done trying to figure it out with my mind. And when we get out of the way, what wants to happen can happen. And sometimes, I talked about that channel consciousness in the beginning. That happens when we surrender.
Mhm.
Okay. I have this client or had this client, her name's Hillary, and she is one of the most surrendered people I know. I mean, she's like, I go to the nail salon. I let my nail girl pick my nail colors. I'm like, you do what? But she wants life to arrive to her. She's like, life is so incredible when you just allow it to arrive to you. That level of surrender keeps her in this place of awe and wonder and surprise. And, you know, we get to decide again how life goes based on our energy we bring to the experiences we're in. We can affect that.
Mhm.
And so it's like, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to imagine you're doing something good, universe,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and just kind of allowing that to happen. Because at least for me, Renee, I don't know about you, but I feel like you can be just as powerfully called to something as you can be called away. And
Mhm.
sometimes we're not willing to let go of the last thing we
Mhm.
knew we were supposed to say yes to, and it has expired.
Yeah.
It's time to grow again. And that feels scary. We go back into the growth zone again.
Mhm. For sure. For sure. And I think it happens so much in business and we hear so much in business too of like lean into this one thing and just repeat and
Mm.
just keep refining and that sometimes when we feel that call, and I actually was just listening to a Vox message from a friend yesterday, and she was like, sometimes I feel like the shift that needs to happen is the pivot. And it's not
Ooh,
the continuing to repeat and, and so it's hard in this space of like, this is what we've been taught and told in business for so long. But yet I look back at where I started in business. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I'm not still in that space and that I didn't just stick out, rinse and repeating way back there. So, like it requires us, like as we evolve, we become different people. And maybe that changes the way our businesses are, right? Like maybe
yeah,
our businesses are different and they're not, as automated and successful or whatever in these like automated funnels that other people have, but they may be the ones that actually fill our souls and light us up. And I think that's
that's
a
so good.
shift and that's something we need too, right? It's not just about making money and creating this automated funnel. It's about us serving and giving back. And I think that's why you and I have like attracted to each other so much. So
Totally. And honestly, you even saying that, I'm just like, someone give her a mic, even though you already have one. Because I resonate with that so much. There's this logical side of me that wants to set it and forget it. But
yeah.
this is not a rotisserie chicken, right? Like, this is not something that you like figure out what the recipe is once and you do it over and over again. Maybe that does work for people, Renee. Like maybe there are some people, but it's like, not me,
Mm-hmm.
not the generator who needs to be alive in her work. My work in the world is constantly an evolution of what I know now, what
Yeah.
I've experienced now, the depth that I can bring people. And it doesn't mean you don't have a stellar business with a customer journey and it makes sense with a funnel and all of those things. Again, that is the masculine that supports the
Mm-hmm.
flow. But I think when we buy this and we want to buy it, truly, when someone sells me that, I'm like, I want to buy that. I really would love to believe that you can tell me the one answer of the product I
Yeah.
need to make, and I'll never have to work a day of my life, and I'll rack up in my DMs, and then they'll all pay. And yet, what that doesn't allow is this natural part in me. You said in your
Mm-hmm.
human design, at least for me, have you looked at those arrows? Do you know about the arrows on it?
I actually had somebody do like a whole business
Read.
breakdown for me.
Ooh,
Yeah. So I don't remember where my arrows were, but they are
Okay.
the not, I know that I'm like a non-specific manifester.
Yes. Yes.
No,
So
okay.
there's more feel, there's more
Yeah.
flow, there's more intuition in you. Same with me.
Yes.
And every time I go against that, my soul suffers. I
Mm-hmm.
dry out. Again, that's what those moments when what I'm doing isn't hitting home even for my audience. And so I'm like, even if I tried right now, it wasn't going to work. So I
Yeah.
might as well just get back into my intuition, get back into my inner connection. And, it's one of the reasons that I invited you into my mastermind and invited because I talk so much about helping women connect with that intuitive, because
Mm-hmm.
intuition, even, I mean, you guys were having a conversation today about change and transition and all these things. Alignment is moment by moment.
Mm-hmm.
This is even aligning. It's not like, oh, Renee just figured out her schedule and her
Yep.
programs and her offerings for all of the year. It's like, no, life is going to shift again and she will have to shift with it.
Yeah.
She will have to intuitively know, what do we need now? Who am I now? You're getting your breathwork certification. All of a sudden there will be a new dimension to you and you'll go, wow, I thought this was only a 5-module program. Forget it. It's 10 in, like, and so we've got to, as women, learn that sensitivity to know, who am I now and what do I need now?
Yeah.
And that's real. Like, it's why it's a skill that I'm very passionate about teaching women, is intuition, because if you can know your signs,
Mm-hmm.
how your gut responds, how your knowing responds, how you light up or lean in. You and I are
Mm-hmm.
generators. And it's just like, oh man, there's like a full body yes, right? Even me
Mm-hmm.
connecting with you, it was like, you should have seen me scrolling Instagram trying to find you again. I was like, why didn't I save her in a folder? Like, but I was lit up about the work that you were doing because something, my
Mm-hmm.
intuition was saying yes. And so if we can learn what our yeses and nos feel like in our body,
Mm-hmm.
they are not in our mind.
Yeah.
Intuition shows up in the body. And if we can learn those things, we are better guides of our own. It's like a GPS system. It's like
Mm-hmm.
recalculating. There's something new on
Mm-hmm.
the agenda, and we're recalculating the route. It's this beautiful GPS system, our intuition.
Yeah. Well, and that's what actually happened with the breath work.
Really?
Yes, I was not really planning on doing it. I had like always kind of thought like, oh, that would be great and wonderful, but it was like on the back radar. And then I did the human design like business reading session, and she had said so much of my design is about helping people reconnect with their bodies and helping to learn and love and accept themselves and their bodies again. And I was like, oh, well, I've been kind of thinking about this breathwork thing. And she's like, 100% that aligns with everything in your design right now. And so I had reached out to a Facebook group because I had no idea. I'm like, I know breathwork facilitators, but I don't know who trains people. So I was like, who in here has done breathwork facilitation? Who have you used? And I started following a couple of people on Instagram, not with the intent that it was going to be happening right now, but like I was just expanding the possibility and broadening like who I was following and who I was tracking. And there was one specific person, and it was just like she just kept coming up in my feed. And the other ones that would come up, like I just didn't have the same feel and the same pull. And then I got on one of her webinars, and it was like some of the songs and like some of the things that she did right out of the gate were like, oh my gosh, this is a sign. And then in the training, she was using the same language that I've been telling my clients and like I'm like, oh my gosh, like
Your
I can't
intuition was going
not.
off. It was
Yes,
going
it was
off.
like the entire time. And so then I got on the sales call, and then she's like, basically got to a point. She's like, anything else, like, or like any hesitations? And I'm like, nope, it's like 100% a heck yes. Like, I can't tell you no, like,
Oh,
I can't give you any objection. Sorry. Like, just tell me what to do next. So, but yeah, that's exactly how it is. And I think and then when you get in there, like I was like, this is 100% where I need to be. Like this was exactly the next move that I needed to make. And every time I've done that, like you
mm,
notice that you get into that space, you're like 100%, this is exactly where I needed to be. And it didn't feel always logical. It doesn't always feel like cognitively you've got the answers, but it's like, it figures itself out. So much so.
100%. And, when we go to grow, I encourage people to like Google a growth zone image,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a real physiological thing that happens when we go to grow. And when we're in a state, when we're in, the normal zone, right? When we're in a sense of complacency or the comfort zone, there's a sense of safety there. That's amazing. But then we get complacent and we get bored and there's something that wants to be inspired. The minute you go to grow, you're met with the fear zone. And so your rational mind is like, hell no, we won't go. Like, we don't have what it takes. Imposter syndrome, all your saboteurs show up. But if you can learn to trust your intuition, right? Like Renee knew what her yeses felt like. So even though her logical brain was like, we don't have the money and this makes no sense and the timing is not good, and we've already said we were going to do all these things, her logical brain is in that fear zone, but her body knew, yes, all of this feels expansive. And then it helps us expand into the learning and the growth zone. And so I love that you're going deeper in that work, because that is only more of, tapping women back into their authentic nature and that flow in their body. I think it'll be so incredible for your work.
Okay. Yes. Kelly, this has been such an amazing episode. I feel like it's been a longer one too. Like, I think we've hit almost nearly an hour here. So where can people find you, connect with you, follow along with you, work with you, like all of those things?
Yeah. So I spend most of my time on Instagram. So Kelly Brock on Instagram, and you can follow my business account where we share so much information and knowledge at KB Collective Official. And I'm sure we'll link that somehow. And then I have a program right now called Essence, and it's a 6-month program for women who want to enter a sacred space for both self-discovery and success. And one of the things that I do well is really facilitating an environment for women to get in touch with who they truly are in an authentic nature. How do we connect with the essence of who we are again now? And how does that get expressed authentically in the work that we're doing in the world? So if any of that resonates with you or you're curious, don't hesitate to DM me and connect. And I do discovery calls for that. So if you want to just hear more about if it's a great fit, I'd be happy to chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. And I know Kelly and I would love to have you guys, like, if you heard anything in this episode that you're just like walking away with that changed a shift, anything, like, definitely reach out to us on Instagram and let us know. We'd love to hear. So thanks so much.
Thanks, friend.